All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. How is everybody today?
Good. How are you?
We're doing really, really well. It's late April, right? So by the time this airs for our Fun Fact Friday, Andrew, we're really excited today. We've got Brandy Mason with us. Brandy's one of our newer agents, but is just coming out of the gates rocking, a great dynamo. Um, and also, we learned recently that she also is a licensed lender. So, Brandy, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you from and how long you been in Colorado, kids, family. I know you got a new puppy. Maybe talk to us about that.
So I grew up in Nebraska, Kearney, Nebraska. Went to University of Nebraska, Kearney. Got married there. I had two kids. We came out here about 11 years ago, and now I have one graduating high school and a 16-year-old. So
Oh,
um, we do have a new naughty puppy that is getting into everything right now. Um, my husband and I are celebrating 20 years of marriage next month.
oh, congrats.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Yeah.
I've been a realtor for 7 years, and before that, I worked in the schools, and I got my lender license last year.
Busy, busy. That's awesome. Congratulations.
That is
Thank
cool.
you.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, so tell me just a little bit about, you know, from your perspective, what are some of the things that may set you apart from another agent from maybe a care standpoint, relationship standpoint, and tools that you leverage on a regular basis to help your clients?
Really, my biggest thing is relationship. With it's not about the money. It's about we are going to be friends when this is over, or I did something wrong, and that's just. I mean, all my clients I'm still in contact with. We chat. I hope I'm always their first contact for anything real estate related.
That's good. And then how have you been able to kind of use your, lender license to help your clients out from that perspective? Like, are you mixing and matching those? Do you keep a separation? Like, I will only lend, or I will only, help people buy and sell. How do you kind of use that relation to help your clients out?
That was something I really looked into in the beginning, if I can do both ends. And in the state of Colorado, we can do both ends. So that is something I love. If we want to put in an offer, I can get you your offer letter and we can do it all very streamlined. We're not waiting for everything to line up is basically. Yeah, so I hope that answered your question. That's really.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think so, and then yeah, so I mean, we talked a little about how you can help people out, and obviously, like Michael said, you've hit the ground running. You have quite a few listings going on right now, which is great. So what do you think if you were going to, your kids are older than mine, but I kind of think about, if I were going to give my son some advice on like, hey, he wants to be a realtor one day, if you could kind of think about some stuff you would give to maybe the people who are either in class, thinking about getting their license, or just dabbling in real estate, what kind of advice would you give them to be successful?
My biggest advice would be join a team. Don't try to do it on your own. That's where I started, and I love to be with people. So to think that you want to work from home and do it yourself is not where I'm at.
That's a good one. It is difficult when we're, by ourselves and to stay motivated or even to pick up ideas and work. So that collaborative aspect is really, really important. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the biggest challenges I remember when I got in the business about 18 years ago was, and I came from corporate America, so I had a structure, right? And I had meetings and I had reports and all these things you got to do, right? Well, number one was a little bit of the loneliness of being at home all the time. There's a little bit of that, but also time seemed to be the biggest enemy, right? Because 2 hours turns into 2 weeks pretty quick. And you haven't done anything, and then we get busy and it's running errands and tasks. And we're like, God, I've been so busy all day, but it's like we're not filling our funnel, right? In a way that is going to produce those results long term, right? So is there certain things that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis as far as routines or rituals that keeps you focused?
The biggest thing that Andrew told me is follow the 9 to 12 schedule or whatever. Make sure that you're sticking to those, 2 or 3 hours first thing Because, you know, I also told him, like, my biggest thing is, oh, the laundry needs changed or whatever needs done at home is the biggest.
Yeah. Well, it's like we talked about, like that time blocking thing that you've committed to, right? Like the laundry's not going anywhere, man. You know, like the laundry will be there at 12:01. Right? If you were sitting down and time blocking for 9 to noon, the laundry will be there at 12:01. The dog can get fed at 8:45 and then doesn't need lunch until lunchtime, right? So you can really set yourself up for success by doing that time blocking that we've been working on so much. I think that's a great point. Another good tip for kind of agents who want to jump in their success rate.
You know,
Yeah.
another thing that I was told early on is not to get stuck in one transaction, you know, keep
Right.
other transactions moving or else that payday happens and now you're out searching again.
Yeah, now you're unemployment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's gosh, there's so many different theories on a lot of this, right? So when you have some of your general tasks, you learn to multitask pretty easily, right? So when you can take your some regular breaks, or you can to get outside and walk, you know, you can do some of those household things and whatnot, and then go back to work, or do them during a Zoom call, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Those are big value adds, right? There's also a lot of theories, because I think as agents we get this work-life balance all the time. We tend to want to please all the time, right? No matter what the situation is, right? And there becomes a kind of a scenario where you end up not taking care of yourself, and you end up not having balance for yourself, right? So a couple things, and I think Andrew hit the nail on the head. I think having the time blocking for what I call the production time, right? This is your admin time, your office time, your social media time, your client follow up, some of the heavy work that you need to do, right? You know, get that done before noon, right? And I think in ninja selling, some of the guidance is win your day by 11. I think you win your day by noon, plus or minus an hour is not going to affect anybody, but you need to win your day. That way, the rest of your day can unfold however it unfolds. You meet somebody for a cocktail, you take the dog for a walk, you go show property, you go to a networking event, you go to a sporting event for the kids, right? Something along that line, you're available. And then you have to balance your evenings, right? So one of the things that when I was a young realtor, somebody taught me was to have your workflow schedule, whatever that schedule is, and don't go outside of your schedule unless it's a dire emergency, right? So for example, I use 7 to 7. I think 7 to 7 is a long day, right? I think most Americans at their job don't work 7 to 7. But the bottom line is, if a call comes in or text comes in after that time, you just don't respond till the next day, right? Because you've given permission, right? And realtors sometimes will respond at 10:30 at night to things. And then they wonder why they have no family time. They wonder why they're so tired. They wonder why they're being pulled in a lot of directions. Well, they allowed their buyer or seller to treat them that way, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they get to figure out what's right for you. We've had agents, Andrew, that did 10 to 10. They were
Mhm.
just kind of night owls. They were just not the strongest in the mornings. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm stronger in the morning than I am later in the day. So I try to front load my stuff earlier in the day if I can, right? But I think whatever that is for you, you work on that in your flow and work a day off, right? Some realtors take a Sunday, Monday off. Some take Wednesdays off. Some take a Thursday off. I think you got to figure out what works for you to go do all your stuff, right? We got to get our car serviced, our hair done, the dog go to the vet, all these things that we do, and try to pack those in so that way when our clients are available, we're available, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
typically when? Nights and weekends, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think you do have to kind of set up that like reasonable amount of time. I use 7 p.m. myself. I think that's reasonable. And that's kind of for everybody. Like if it's my clients, it's like, hey, I work till 7. If we were in a contract with somebody, all my dates and deadlines, the time of day is 7 p.m. because first of all, I'm not obviously going to be able to get any answers for you, man. Like I'm not going to be able to wake up a lender, or a title company or that kind of stuff at 7:30 at night, right? It just doesn't happen. And yeah, and I kind of do. Another one I do is on Sundays. I really do my best not to have appointments. That's my family gets up, we go to church. We tend to kind of do an outing together. That tends to be kind of family day for us, right? So will I take one? By appointment only if nothing else can work? Sure, I'm flexible enough, but. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of Michael was right. It's part of time blocking is being able to set up that balance for yourself and understanding when you work best, when your clientele is going to be available, and making sure you're taking time for other stuff. We can't just work this job all the time, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely the power of no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely there is. So what's your favorite part about being a realtor and a lender? Either one.
I really love the people side of it. I love working with people. I'm not born to work in a factory or without people, so knowing that is big. I also love the flexibility. You know, I told you guys I have one graduating, one that's 16. Um, Granted, they don't need mom as much as a 2-year-old, but I love to be there. If I'm presenting at school, mom's there. That's,
Mm-hmm.
my biggest thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what's one thing you wish you could change?
Okay, right now, no, these listings to get sold. Um, I think it is that take advantage of a kind of mentality of people. Sometimes it's like we don't work a real job. It's um, once again, you're available anytime, or you can drop everything and run. That would probably be my biggest thing.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I could say, what do I love? Yeah, I mean, I love, I love the people thing too, but to say something different, I love that my job's different every day. I'm not. I did the office kind of corporate gig for a couple different companies, and it was nothing against them. It just is not a lifestyle that speaks to my personality type or how I operate, right? So I like being able to work on skills and making sure I understand how to do my job well, and I'm staying on top of the market, not necessarily get really good at one specific task that I do over and over and over and over again, right? So I like the how varied our job is. And I think that, maybe a little bit different than what Brandy was saying. I think I just wish that our clients had a little better idea about like what we do and just the general process, right? And that's something that's on us to teach them. But it is difficult because it is such a nebulous process, generally buying a home or even selling a home. And people might do it, I don't know, 0 to 5 times in their life, maybe somewhere in there. Probably most people do it 2 or 3 times. And I think if so, because of that, like lack of understanding, and I think one thing that it makes it difficult and scary for our clients, right? So, a couple things that I've tried to do to help alleviate that, I think would help us all out is I think there's a lot of first time home buyer classes out there that are very, very important, and we should continue to service those. I've hosted a few and want to continue to do it first time home seller classes because that presents a whole different mindset, right? And then generally, if you're selling a house, you're probably buying another one, unless you're just selling a investment property, but you're probably, so you're dealing with a lot of push and pull on the emotions. And, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that our clients have to work through because they're like, well, there's nothing wrong with my house. I'm not fixing anything. And then the house that they're buying is a piece of crap that needs to have the walls repainted, right? So I think there's an opportunity there to understand, like, hey, there's going to be, some give and take in this relationship, right? And I think that we can do, a better job of like, and that's why we really encourage our agents, and I think they do a good job of like articulating the process without having strings attached to it, right? So, and that would make people, a much much more comfortable, I think, in the process, right? Versus it being like a big scary, I need to have 20% down or I can't buy a house. That's probably the most common things we have to combat. It's like, no, that's great if you do, but if you don't, there's a solution, right? And there's probably a mortgage insurance solution if we can talk to the right lender and make it work. So yeah, education is, I think, going to be the biggest thing that we can do, and that'll fix a lot of our headaches. And a lot of the industry distrust will come from being familiar with it. That was really long winded. Sorry, guys.
No, I think
I
you're.
think it's a great point.
It's a great point. And interesting. We just recently went through this NAR and DOJ rules changes, right, and verdict that happened. And it's interesting. For decades, this industry has spent millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars about listings, 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 listings. Well, the reality of it is, you don't have a house to sell without the buyer, right? The buyer brings the money, however they bring it, loan, cash, doesn't really matter. It's all cash to the seller, right? So I think what that taught us was we have to understand and provide our value as buyer's agents. I think there was a big misconception on what we did and how we do it. And it's not just, the challenge we have is that we do our job the day that you went under contract. You earned your commission that day, the day that everybody signed. You just don't get paid till closing. And there's just a bunch of little steps that happen in between. A lot of those little steps, again, were pleasers, right? Some of them, not a problem. We're a guide, we're a coach. Some of those steps we shouldn't be involved in at all. Like we shouldn't be involved. We're not lenders. Let's just say you are. We're not lenders. We're not appraisers. We're not home inspectors. We're not county researchers. All these things, right? We try to guide people through them. Then we manage emotions, right? And to get people to their ultimate goal too. So I think that the positive, if there was anything that came out of that, was we are now stronger as buyer's agents. We have a buyer presentation now that we never had, right? And I think Andrew's right. We do a terrible job as realtors telling our clients, what we did, how we did it, and reminding them about what we did. All of us nationwide have a terrible job of that.
Well, and I think, another, I think that it's going to be a paradigm shift in real estate that's going to be very important and should have happened probably 20 or 30 years ago. Is for a long time, a big portion of our real estate commission was like access based, right?
Yeah.
We paid a fee annually to access the MLS, and then you had to run things down. You had your own marketing access. You had all sorts of things right now. But in a world where with IDX feeds and the internet, like it's pretty easy to get that data out there, right? And so we can't continue to treat our job as an access-based profession. We are now a service-based profession, right? Which is going to offer people, both agents and clients, an opportunity to negotiate and figure out what their value prospect is, what service I want to offer, and what service and what sort of value the market puts on that service, right? And I think that there's going to be a wide scale variation on what's offered and the type of service level. I think that's great, man. The NAR announcing that for all intents and purposes, off marketing listings is now okay, which it always should have been, man. Like it should be on the seller to decide how they want to market their property. It's not that they didn't sign up to be a realtor. They didn't sign up for some arbitrary rule set, so they're there to market the property, right? And so I think that, and one of the biggest things that I always struggled with, and Michael will back me up on this, is, for a long time we would the same side of our mouth, like, oh, hey, real estate commissions are super negotiable. Clients can always negotiate, but then we would also say, never negotiate your commissions, never do a deduction. It's like, well, you can't hold those two ideas in your head at the same time, right? So they either are negotiable and you can be flexible and negotiate, or they're not and you can't, right? And that's for each individual agent to make up their own mind what their value is, right? But I mean, I think that the savvy consumer should come with like an idea about how they want their property marketed, contact a professional, get some counseling done, and see if those ideas align. You can make a value align, or maybe they say like, hey, you can actually probably do this for a little bit more, and I'm willing to do it for your service and get your property sold a little faster. Or hey, like, you got in our current market, I don't think you need, drone footage and a floor plan and in a full video production to sell a $300,000 house, right? That's probably going to go pretty quick in our market. And so if we can, again, think of our job as a service-based industry, I think that's going to make everybody happier, man. Because if we focus on service, we can provide good service, and everyone's going to have a good time. It's, hey, man, food's more expensive, but if I have a great server, I never feel bad about paying my tab and leaving 20% tip, right? Housing getting more expensive. If I deliver or give great service, people are going to feel good about paying for it because they're going to get what they pay for. Yeah.
I think we're also educators. We're not salesmen. We're educators more than anything.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. It's interesting. Let's listen to this talk. It's like I'm going back to a lot of stuff we talked about, Andrew, and the experience is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where we draw from helps, right? So we're all have various experiences, whether it's our past careers, our family life, our professional real estate life, right? And all of that resume, you say, comes into, well, what does it mean for me? And what it means for you is I've got the experience to draw from, right? To navigate you through. Like, for example, I've always said, you don't need a realtor to put a sign in your yard. You don't need a realtor to go drive around every single neighborhood in your hometown and go find a house. You don't need a realtor to put a sign in your yard and sell your own house, right? You need us contract to close, right? And you need us in all of our tools and our resources, right? And pricing today seems to be a big one. And I think it's a couple things. I think we're still have some residual from the pandemic, right? I think we have a lot of inexperienced first time home sellers, even, right? We talk about the first time home buyer. What about the first time home seller, right? That's a whole different experience for them. Then, not to mention, market like our secondary market at Strategic is in Missouri, at Lake of the Ozarks. So we've got a whole second home market where 95% of the property owners don't live here, right? So you got to have a different relationship, and you got to be able to speak the market at a moment's notice. But also, what does it mean that's different than your home market back in Denver, right? Because it's a very different conversation, right? And I think that it's those resources of being able to explain, like, how's the market, Brandy? When it depends. Islands Ranch is very different than Wash Park, is very different than Boulder, is very different than Southeast Aurora. They're all very different, right? That's our skill set that we spend the time to learn, and we spend the time to understand what that is. Not only the real estate mechanics, right? There's a mechanical side of the real estate that's separate, but just to understand the market fundamentally is a big thing that we need to spend time and educate ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. And again, it's on us. Like I said, it's on us to deliver a good service. It's on us to provide a good experience for our clients. It's not on them to choose to have fun. Like it's and I unfortunately I think a lot of agents don't come with that mindset. I think they in theory understand that, but when push comes to shove, like, as people, not just agents, as everybody, we make assumptions, right? And so we kind of assume that people
Right,
know what I'm doing and know the process, and versus you just can't take that stuff for granted, man. Like, yeah,
right,
every little tiny thing we take for granted, we have to explain every single time. And
right.
get good, be patient, be articulate, you know, be understanding and flexible, and when you're explaining all this stuff, and your success rate will go up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're in the market every day.
Hmm.
So sometimes that person that's asking questions, they've never bought a house or they never sold one,
Yeah.
right? So they've been in their house 15 years. The market's changed. It's not the same, right? So I think really identifying that and getting to that quickly is important versus Andrew and I just attended an industry event last week, and there was a little bit which kind of irritates me, and I think it irritates Andrew. There's a little bit of the look at me, how great I am. I'm so perfect. I'm amazing versus really, what we do for our clients, right? And without our clients, without our industry affiliates, without our title partners, right, and our lenders, a deal just doesn't happen. A transaction doesn't happen,
Hmm.
right?
Ah,
You know, and so I think we're a big cohesive team working together in a way of win-win goals, and I think that's a different mind shift.
Yeah, and I will say, like, there was definitely some of that, but there was also, especially towards the end, like a fair amount of focus on, collaboration and thanking their other realtors and their title and lender
Fair enough.
partners for their involvement there,
Yeah.
because I mean, our job, it's not the same as like a lawyer where it's like inherently adversarial, right? Where like, you wronged me, so I'm suing you, or whatever, So it's like inherently adversarial. At our end, there's like maybe diverse interests, right? Like your seller wants to get the most profit and your buyer wants to get the best deal, and your seller wants to deliver the house as is and your buyer wants to get it with varying scales of work to be performed during the process. But at the end of the day, your seller wants to sell a house and your buyer wants to buy a house, right? So we are driving towards the same goal. It's about finding and in working with our clients and then collaborating with the person who's working with the other side of the client to figure out how to navigate the right road to get to that destination, right? So I I just don't take this adversarial approach to it. Like I'm gonna in Michael, backing up on this, I'm gonna very intensely advocate for my clients' best interests, right? But at the end of the day, the reason why they got into this isn't to, you know, put a few extra $1,000 in their pocket or have someone, repair a fence. They got into this to buy a house. They got into this to sell a house, right? So having that why be understood, and that's always the driving force. And the details, sure, we're gonna figure out, right? But that collaborative approach is going to lead to everyone having a better experience, everyone have more success, don't be that agent who's like talking crap about the other agent to your clients, because that's just going to set up this negative experience in your mind, right? Like I kind of think about, like if you ever had like that, when you were growing up, you had the friend who maybe their parents were divorced and they like talk crap with the parent when they weren't there. It's like that's just bad for everybody, dude. Like so.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Even if you have this like conflict or some maybe a bad phone call or a bad email or a bad text message with the other agent, your client doesn't need that information. It's not helping them. It's not serving them in any way. They need the data. They need to know the gist of how the conversation went. Like, hey, I'm not sure. It seemed like they were kind of resistant to it, but they're going to present to their client. We'll circle back. They need you to be the professional, and that's part of our job is to treat each other well. But when things go haywire, not let that filter down to our clients, because
Right.
they may as well not use me then. If they're dealing with the same emotional stress,
Yeah.
then what am I doing my job for? So yeah.
Right.
I like your point of like the lawyer aspect. We don't have a winner and a loser. We have to find that, or the mediator. We have to find the common ground where everybody wins.
Yeah, yeah, and nothing against lawyers out there. You guys are all
Oh no.
They all have a
but
job.
yeah, but it's I just feel like people associate real estate transactions in this like adversarial mindset when it's not, man. It's like I don't know, we're all on a road trip and we're arguing over where we're gonna stop for fast food. You know what I mean? Like it's like we're all trying to go to the same place, man. Let's figure out a good way to get there we can all agree with. Um,
Mhm.
And the other thing too is I it heard one time there's like 13 opinions in every transaction, right? So you've got a seller, you got a listing agent, you got a buyer, the buyer's agent, you got an appraiser, you got a home inspector, you got the lender, you got title, you got home warranty. Andrew, give me a 10. Give me the next one.
oh gosh, you got friends and
County
family.
records.
You got, yeah.
Friends and family, and how many times have we heard this? Well, that house should sell for $1 million, and it's up selling at 400,000, and or Zillow says, and it's like, hey, we have a direct line to Zillow. Let's call them right now and have them scratch you a check, right? It's just like it doesn't work that way. So it's our job to interpret. It's our job to dissect it and guide the best way we possibly can. So I think you're exactly right. So, well, enough about work. That's boring stuff. What do you have to do for fun? With the family. Give us some fun stuff.
We love to do escape rooms. We have
Oh,
done a ton of them together. It's so much fun to take the kids with, and
yeah.
That's super. Yeah.
that is our favorite thing. We also like to go for hikes.
Okay.
And, like Andrew said, Sunday is our church day. So that is our family day. We go to church, usually go out to lunch. It's usually the conversation on the way to church, where are we going to lunch? Um, we got teenagers.
It's like every week, it's same conversation.
Yeah. um, those are just really our biggest things is
That's good. Did you guys hunt any eggs this weekend?
so my nieces were here. They're 5-year-olds. And so my teenagers hid the eggs for their cousins is pretty much what we did.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, we had a good little time. Yeah, we had some friends over. So Calvin's 2.5, just about, and our other friends have a daughter that's about the same age. She's 3 or 4 months younger than him. And yeah, and so we just like, it snowed here, obviously, and so it wasn't on the ground, but the ground was all cold and muddy and crappy. So we just like hid a bunch of eggs in our basement and let them run around and have a good time. And like, they're super cute together, man. They like were like swapping eggs and putting them in each other's baskets and having a good time. So yeah, it was fun to watch them pal around. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, Brandy, anything as we kind of wrap up today? We're about 30 minutes here of things that you want to maybe leave us with, or some thoughts, things like that, or even maybe your thoughts on just a general real estate market.
My general thought is people are always buying and selling, especially with where we're at. So if it doesn't sell today, it'll sell tomorrow. So it's hard to stay positive sometimes, but yeah, that's pretty much my biggest thing is it's gonna sell one way or the other. We'll get there.
All properties.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm. They sure do. Well, man, it's so nice just chatting with you, and I feel like I feel like I know you a little bit better now than prior to this, and I think it helps with our small team. I think we're a small family in our office, and Andrew and I try to be as involved as we can. So knowing the things that are important to you helps become important to us as well. So we definitely appreciate you today, and we hope you have an amazing weekend going into the weekend, and the weather's going to break and be amazing.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, until next time, we will talk with you later.
See you guys.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.